Ah, how I have dreamed of this day. Mr. Tentacles, Professor of Art. What a marvelous opportunity for the people of Bikini Bottom.
Hey everyone, so in today's video, I'm going to be recreating art from one of my favorite artists of all time, Squidward Tentacles. He's just so incredibly talented and so underrated. Like, Bikini Bottom does not appreciate his talent. So I'm here to make a video dedicated to him to spread his amazing artwork and share it with the world. In honor of Squidward, I'm going to be recreating 3 of his art creations. 2 will be paintings, 1 will be a sculpture, and I figured we would start with Bold and Brash because it is his most iconic piece.
How about this one? I call it Bold and Brash. More like belongs in the trash.
It's also a little overdone, which is why we're getting it out of the way first. First, I need to show off my little paintbrush cup. And then I also have this mug. Yes. So I have some reference here for Bold and Brash, and I'm going to start off by sketching in his shape. What's lovely about Squidward's art is they're all self-portraits. Like, don't we wish we all had that level of self-confidence? This is not actually my first time painting Bold and Brash. I did a buff version of it during the Squidward as a Hot Guy video. If you haven't seen that, I'll have it linked in my little end screen at the end of the video. That was probably the best coloring I've ever done on a body ever. Not the Bold and Brash part, but the Squidward part. That's still one of my favorite art pieces just because it did turn out so well. So that looks about right. I am now going to go in with some acrylic paint to paint him in. I'm going to take some white, orange, and yellow and put them into my palette. I'm using a palette with wells because these cheap paints are very runny. The orange is a little bright, but I'm sure it'll tone down when it mixes with the yellow. Bold and Brash just has such lovely organic shapes in it. It is truly a work of art. It's no wonder this is Squidward's most iconic piece. Okay, I'm going to start getting some yellow in there before this orange dries. I was going to work my way higher onto the canvas, but we don't have time. I really like blending colors on the canvas when I can because the color is less solid. If I mix it in the palette, it's just one solid color on the canvas. This way there'll be some areas that are more yellow, some areas that are more orange, and it just looks really nice. You don't want all your strokes to be blended out. You want to be able to see those brush strokes in the final painting. Now I'm going to clean my brush in some water and grab some of that white paint. Looking at my reference to make sure I accurately portray this. Gonna sweep some of it on. Most of it is on the right hand side of the painting. Okay, I think this is a pretty good base. What I'm gonna do now is the side pieces of the canvas. I feel like this is what everyone always leaves out when they try to recreate this, is they don't do the little triangles down the side of the canvas that represent the stretched canvas, I guess. Realistically, this canvas is stretched all the way around the wood, but the one Squidward's holding, you can see the stretched canvas marks on the side. So I'm gonna add those.
Oh, so chic.
Thank you. Although I can't take credit for this beauty, you know, it's all Squidward's design.
Yes. The brilliant artist known as Squidward.
Agreed. So underrated.
Oh.
So now that the background is dry, I'm gonna go in and paint Squidward. What is so genius about this artwork is that the bluish greenish tone contrasts really well with the orange and yellow in the background. Those colors complement each other very nicely, and it helps the Squidward pop. Yes, baby. Can you stop hitting my tripod? For those who don't know, this artwork originates from the episode called Artist Unknown, where Squidward is teaching an art class. Only Spongebob shows up for it, and it turns out SpongeBob's a natural and all his stuff is way better than Squidward's, at least according to this art critic that shows up. And this art critic just puts down all of Squidward's art, including poor old Bold and Brash. Clearly that art collector knows nothing about quality and taste when it comes to art. Just look at this sweeping motion down from the head all the way through to the foot. Beautiful, beautiful curves. Now that I have the main shape down, I'm going to go in with a touch of green here and there, just so it's not all one solid color. I also have some yellow. So next I need to do his outline, because in my reference he is outlined all the way around. So I'm going to get a thin brush and do that as the final step. Well, and the red part of his eye, I need to do his pupil too. All right, there we have it. Bold and Brash. Ah, yeah. So this next one will be pretty interesting because it's a sculpture, and it's a sculpture of Squidward en repose.
I call this one Squidward en Repose.
It's actually really cool looking. And to sculpt it, I got a whole bunch of this Model Magic by Crayola. It's an air dry type of sculpting foam clay, so it should be hopefully easy to work with. I used this a little bit as a kid but have not touched it since, so hopefully it works for what I want it for. I also have some wire because the sculpture has wires coming out of the head. I'm also going to need some wire for the armature. I'm going to see what else I have for wire though for that. And then this is my base, a little wooden base here. It's not quite tall enough, it doesn't have quite the right proportions, but it'll be good enough. And I have a wooden block that I plan on screwing into it, so I can have a screw sticking up, which I can then attach the armature to and go from there. The block is a little bit shorter than the box, and so I'm gonna put it on top of something. It's spinning. The block is pushed down and just spinning. Ow! Okay, it's in there. Kind of want to redo that because that is not centered, but I'll probably compromise the durability of this, so let's not. So next I'm going to glue this down so that this will not pop open. I should probably just hot glue it, but I'm too impatient to wait for the gun to heat up. Okay. Which wire do I want to use? This is thicker, but I want to save it for the head part, but this is a little too thin. Unless I layer it up. It's easier to manage though. I have flat needle nose pliers, but I don't know where they are, so I have these. Okay, there's phase one. I'm gonna need some wire sticking up to go to the head so that the head can connect to this. Maybe I do want my hot glue gun because I need to glue this up. No matter how hard I try, I'm not gonna be able to replicate the beauty of Squidward's art perfectly. The masters can be imitated but not duplicated. Okay, so I have my base, and I think I'm gonna paint it now before I do the rest of it. Put some orange drops on here to mix with the yellow, and it is kind of mixing, but it dried almost instantly, and so you can see the orange splotches through. Okay, let's open up some of this Model Magic. basically sculptable foam. It's so light. Ooh, well, let's see how this goes. My paint is not 100% dry yet. Smoothing out all these creases is going to be a challenge, especially with my long nails because they want to hit everything. And then I have to get the side stuff to seamlessly blend in. I do have some sculpting tools. I should probably bust those out. I suppose it doesn't have to be perfect, but I want it to be perfect. It's so lumpy and you guys, I cannot smooth these creases. Help me. I chose this stuff because I thought it would be easier than polymer clay and it would be lighter, which would make this easier, and then I wouldn't have to worry about a base that I can bake. But this is just a mess. Okay, now for the head. Okay, let's see if this will hold. The armature is a little wobbly. And my armature might be too long. Is this gonna poke out the top? Oh no. Oh no. You guys, it's falling over. The stuff is pretty light, so I thought it would be fine. It's also just sagging over the part that I already did, like just engulfing it. Slowly sinking down and consuming the ring. Maybe I should have gotten a styrofoam ball. Okay, so here is my revised armature. It's a lot thicker now. It has a lot of hot glue on it, and I added some of my black wire on here. And it is thicker than the other wire, but it's still very malleable. It just mushes. And so hopefully this works. But I figured this wouldn't stop the ball from just oozing over the ring again. So I ran out and picked up some foam balls. They're a bit smaller than I would have liked, but it should still work. It's just because, you know, this is still pretty light because it's foam clay. It's still foam. And so this will make it slightly lighter, but mostly it will keep it from piercing all the way through the metal. Like, this is more dense than the foam, so it should be able to sit on here. The thing is, when I first built this, I wasn't thinking about the foam, and so the wires are kind of thick. We'll see if I can even get these onto the foam, or into the foam. It would have been better to have a bunch of individual wires kind of poking out. I just want to make sure I don't pierce all the way through the ball. This feels a lot more rigid than before. Well, it's holding. I don't think it's going to be very pretty because it's still going to have creases and lumps. Flipping this over to the back side to see how it's looking is like flipping your canvas in Photoshop. I'm like, ugh, what is this monstrosity? Another thing I got at the dollar store was all this wire for only $1.50. It's a way better deal than Michael's. The side's smoother, so I want it to be the front, but it's leaning that way, so I feel like I almost need the nose on this side to balance it out. Alright, here's my nose armature. I'm going to sculpt the nose on it and then stick the wire into the head, and hopefully that holds. This stuff is hard to sculpt because even the lightest touch completely changes the shape. It's not as firm as polymer clay. Let's go now, baby. Do you want to sit behind my bum? Here. Here. Okay, here we go. I don't know if I left enough wire to poke in. Like, this part's probably not long enough. Ugh. Well, let's give it a try. I think it's too big. Slowly sagging further and further. I don't know why I care so much about this being perfect. I just like everything to be nice. Just at least when I give it my full effort, you know? Does that have to be perfect? Because once I push it in, it's gonna wreck it. Now his head's extra lumpy. See, I'm extra impressed at Squidward's art now because this ain't easy. This just looks very wrong. Okay, attempt number 3. I'm gonna try putting the wire in without the nose on it. I'm gonna try to pierce the foam ball. Oh, I can feel it piercing. without a sculpted nose because like I just can't get the force I need when the nose is already on there. These tools don't help very much. I feel like this clay responds best to the heat from your hands. Next I'm going to do the earpieces and I'm going to try to pierce the foam again right away.
I don't think that will fit in with the other pieces in my collection.
Why not?
Because it's an art collection! Ah!
Okay, it's something. I use my sculpting tool to push a bit in like this to make the little loopy shapes. The eyes are next, and I'm trying to figure out if this is enough for both eyes, because it'd be nice to not have to open another pack of this. I do have 2 more. I bought this stuff specifically for the project, so I guess it doesn't matter if I open it. And I can just reseal it in a Ziploc bag, I guess. 2 eyeballs coming right up. I'm just gonna paint these. I figured there wasn't a point in buying a whole pack of white clay just for the eyes, even though I am opening up a whole pack of the turquoise clay just for the eyes. Alright, let's paint these eyes. Okay, while the whites of the eyes are drying, I'm gonna get started on the wire, which is the final step. I'll wrap around this paintbrush. I'm just going to loosen the top a bit. I may have made this too long, but I figured it's better off to start off too long than make it too short. I'm going to cut off a little bit. And this one ends up having a curve to it, a little arch shape. Last but not least, let's paint the reds of his eyes. One eye has a gigantic pupil and the other has a tiny pupil. I think the white's still a bit wet because it's mixing in with my red paint. Alright you guys, here is Squidward in repose. Oh yes. I thought it would turn out better than this, to be honest, but the clay was a little more difficult than anticipated and harder to smooth out.
This isn't a sculpture. A good sculpture takes more time.
So for Bold and Brash and Squidward and Repose, those were both from the episode Artist Unknown. But this other one I'm going to do is more obscure. I just wanted to include at least one thing that you weren't expecting. So there's an episode called Chatterbox Gary, and in that episode, Squidward shows Gary his big art collection, his big display of art, and there's all kinds of quirky stuff on that wall. They stop in front of a headshot of Handsome Squidward, and that one was very tempting to do, but I feel like Handsome Squidward is also so overdone. So I decided to choose one of the other paintings on the wall, and there are some good ones in there. Like, what is that one on the beach of Squidward riding Squidward? There's one of Knight and Princess Squidward. It's really weird. I mean, all his stuff is kind of weird, but the ones where there's 2 Squidwards is even more weird. Anyway, one that really caught my eye was this one of Squidward with a rose. He's topless, he's got a little gut on him, and it almost looks like he has a little mustache, but that's actually just the rose, but it kind of looks like he has one of those skinny mustaches. It's just so good. Like, how can I not paint this? There was no name given to this one. I'm not sure what the creators call this one, if they have a name for it, but I'm gonna call it, I almost said Tuxedo Squid, and I was like, that ain't a tuxedo. Normally he only wears a shirt, and right here he's only wearing pants. It's really weird. I think there's even armpit hair. It's blurry, so it's hard to tell. Even some of the blobs on the painting are hard to decipher, but I'll do my best. I can't call it handsome Squidward because that's taken. I don't really want to call it sexy Squidward because that's pretty much what I call my other Squidward art that I did. Or Squidward as a hot guy. Kind of has two names. Milady. No. I'm gonna call it... Squidward. Alright. Time to move this guy out of the way. The paint, by the way, on his eyes is kind of cracking. And Model Magic does not like to be painted. So, step one is to use a sticky roller on this because it's got cat hair on it. The next step is to apply a layer of acrylic gesso as a base coat. And really, I should have done this beforehand, but I did not think ahead. So now I'm going to work on the background, which is pretty much solid yellow. I'm going to mix in some white here and there, just so it's not solid color. Kind of like we do with the Bold and Brash. We don't want it to be too plain. Oh god, these paints are so chunky. It's actually kind of mixing with the gesso, because the gesso's not 100% dry. Mixing in a bit of the white now. Just a touch here and there. So the art I'm using as reference is framed, and I considered buying a frame and gluing seashells onto it. But I just thought, this is getting to be too much. Why don't I just paint the frame on the thingy? Like, frames aren't cheap, so I'm just gonna draw the frame on there. This is just blending into the orange. Why don't I wait for stuff to dry? Maybe while after drying, we can start putting Squidward's details in there. Okay, for Squidward, I'm just gonna go in there and wing it. Babe! Babe. Here, let me bring this bag. Moved that bag she was in outside the room, and she just found a new bag in here to climb into. I think you're just trying to pester me, Kiki. He has such defined titties in this. Look at those juicy pecs. Or are they moobs? I think his body's a little too off-center in mine. I was giving him quite the curvature in his body, but he's standing more straight. Do I want to try covering that up with yellow? Ooh, maybe a little bit. I'm going to move him over a tad. Wait, Minna, that was you? You sneaky bab. I thought it was Kiki who came back. Am I really sculpting out Squidward's titty right now? Then he's got his long arm up behind his head. Comes down like so. Long, long man. I'm gonna go back to the border for a hot minute and draw in these seashells. I gotta remember to also paint along the side of the board. I haven't done that yet for the orange. Now I'm adding a bit of shading to the edge of the frame. I just love how Squidward is unashamed of who he is. He paints himself all the time because he knows he's worth it. When no one else sees anything special in you, you have to see the special in yourself. It's kind of hard to see what these other blobs are. I'm like, are they flowers or are they just random splotches? I'm gonna call them random splotches. I can make them somewhat floral in nature so they aren't too weird. Not the classic Spongebob flower shape like that, but it's something. The thing about the greens of these cheap paints that I have is the greens are not very vibrant. I need something a little closer to a neon green, but I don't have it. And when you try mixing certain colors, it just gets muddy. Like with these cheap paints, I also just have to use orange straight from the tube because if I try mixing orange, it is the dullest orange of my life. I can mix it just fine with other paints, but with these ones, no. Yeah, Kiki, no. Now we're getting in that lovely rose. Squidward, you make me feel all tingly inside. He is the one true art daddy. And now for his pants. Oh, Squidward, you can't fool us with those pants. Why are you trying to be so modest? You trying to tease us? 'Cause we've seen it all, boy. I made a boo-boo with the stem here. The stem should be in the mouth, not in front of the teeth there. There is a line there, but it's the black line of the teeth. Okay, believe it or not, this is done except for outlines. It looks like it's missing so much, and I mean it is. But it needs black outlines on things. It needs white outlines on the border. I think I'll start with the border right now. Add some of those white lines, and then we'll move on to Squidward. Okay, so for the black outlines, I want to test a little something. I have a black paint pen. I'm going to see if I can make thin enough lines to use this. Ooh, I think it will work. Well, okay, none of that. Make sure the areas I'm putting my palm on are dry. Just have the song Kiss from a Rose stuck in my head. I just repositioned the camera, but then I had to turn it sideways so I could do a nice vertical line for the top of his head. I can do vertical lines easier than horizontal lines, especially when it's a nice big curve. This keeps getting a little clogged. Like the paint is dry, but it still gets caught in the nib. I kind of want to outline the rose, even though it's not outlined. It just looks weird that he's outlined and the rose isn't. I think his pupils are just black in this. Freehanding the eye shape is really difficult. I'm gonna reshape that and go in with the turquoise and try to fix it. Oh yeah, I can't forget the armpit hair. God. My camera shut off there and I didn't even notice. So, I did decide to ink the rose. Here's where we're at. Wait, does he have a belly button? Oh, it's really hard to tell. It almost looks like he has a little outie. I'm drawing it in. It's so pixelated, it's hard to tell. It doesn't help that I got my screenshot from a video uploaded to YouTube, so it wasn't HD in the first place. But here we have it, the Squidward. I failed to catch some of the smugness in his expression, but it still turned out well overall. It's definitely a very strange painting, but that can be said of most of Squidward's paintings. Yes. Alright you guys, that concludes this video of me recreating Squidward's artwork. This was so fun to do, you guys, and if you think I should do more, let me know, because Squidward has so much artwork and it would be fun to recreate more of them. Like that close-up of the handsome Squidward. There's such good colors in that. I think that would be really fun to recreate, and there's so many. Oh my god, just seeing them all in frame together like this makes me so happy. Squidward, you are just such a genius. Like, how could we not recreate these masterpieces? Like, actually though, I like most of Squidward's art. I think it's really cool. So this one is for you, Mr. Tentacles. Bikini Bottom may not appreciate your art, but we do. And I'm sorry my beret does not look like a beret. It's very cylindrical. I just did the best with what I had for materials. This is a hat that had a brim all around it, and I just sort of tucked in the brim, but it looks like a cylinder, and I added this a little bit. It's close enough to a beret, right? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.
You pretentious little insignificant artist. Your sniveling creations are worth less than a protozoan's waste.